I'll learn you up. Yes, sir.
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion. It is episode number 389. My name is Brando. Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a while. I don't expect you to remember it. Scott Ian, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I am good. I'm better than Gary Holt. First thing, because he was supposed to, sorry, I mean, you may have you do a spit take. He was supposed to join us, but you guys are way up north in, well, are you still in Canada right now where it's all frozen tundra? Where are you right now?
We're in the frozen tundra of Grand Forks, North Dakota.
That's right.
But we crossed the border last night back into the States. We played Winnipeg last night, and then it's just directly south down to Grand Forks. Halfway is the border. And it was like minus 17. We were there probably around 2:30, 3 in the morning, and minus 17 out. And it was about a 20, 30-second walk from where the buses had to pull up to get inside. And yeah, I guess Gary fell on the ice pretty hard. Went to the hospital today for some x-rays, but nothing's broken, but he's not feeling so good.
So I completely understand. Get rest, Gary. And I also understand because I'm a handicapped person, and I've told my bosses I'm no longer going into work when it snows. So that's why I have a nice home set up. I'm like, I can't make those falls anymore. So
yeah, got it. I once felt not much of a story, but a couple of years back, I was in Ottawa, and it was, again, freezing cold, and everything was iced over in the city. And I was walking from a coffee shop with like a full cup of coffee, and I had my backpack on. I was walking back to the venue, and I slipped, and it was like straight up cartoon fall, like legs and feet up in the air, like airborne, flying backwards. And the only thing that saved me from cracking my head open was my backpack. I had a big, fat, full backpack.
Oh, man.
The backpack hit and totally broke my fall. The only bummer was the hot coffee went all over my jacket. But, yeah, literally that backpack, it's like probably saved me a concussion because I was going down hard.
Well, maybe you should wear a backpack for the rest of the tour.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm outside, I'm wearing a backpack.
Well, speaking of, I guess, cold weather, because people were excited for have you come back on the podcast. Jason just saw the show of Anthrax, Exodus, and Slayer in Calgary, Alberta. And also, who else have we got? We got Jason, or Sean rather, and British Columbia, Penticton. I don't know. Penticton. I was not even close.
Penticton. Yeah.
Penticton. I wasn't even close. I'm just an ignorant American. That's fine. But they said all three bands killed it, but they were really there for the thrash. What does that mean to you? Like 40 years later, that this thrash music is just, there's such a community there that just will go out in all sorts of weather to see you guys.
Well, Western Canada, when it's above zero, it's like springtime for them. So, so they are a much tougher breed when it comes to weather than most people who live to the south. Yeah, it's no. I see these people online outside the show, and like I've got 5 layers of shit on, and these guys are in like their denim vests with no sleeves. Like what? But yeah, the show so far, the first leg of this tour back last year, back in August, September, was incredible. And of course, that opened the door to do leg 2. Both bands wanted to do it, us and Black Label. Of course, we had Hatebreed on the first leg. We got Exodus this time. And put together the second leg, even bigger venues. And the show so far, we're a week in. I mean, Western Canada, we were playing like these like kind of mid-sized hockey arenas. And I mean, we haven't done that as a headliner in a long time. Like, these are the same venues we had just opened for Slayer in a couple of years ago on Slayer's Goodbye Tour. We were out on a lot of that, and we played a lot of these places as the opener. And here we are just a couple of years later, and we're headlining the same joints. So it feels great. It's amazing, to really feel like all the hard work, and over all these decades, and we still get to do this at this level, and we still get to have fun and out here with Zach and the boys and Gary and Tom and Zetro. And, these are people we've been friends with for literally forever. I mean, the first time Anthrax and Exodus played together was the Kabuki Theater in San Francisco in 1984.
Wow.
Like, that's how long we go back. I mean, literally to the infancy days. So yeah, it's an amazing feeling. It really feels great. And the shows have been great. The package is awesome because each band brings a different dynamic. So, you're not sitting through 3 hours of just the same thing hitting you over the head all night. It's like 3 distinctly different versions of heavy. And I just think it's a great show.
That's why you kind of partially answered. I was going to ask you and Gary, but you can answer it as well. Like, when is the first time that you two met? Because I love that these friendships, these bands go back so far that at this point of your career, it's probably all about the fun. So do you remember the first time that you met Gary or the guys in Exodus?
Yeah, it was 84, that show.
Yep.
I talked about. We were on tour with Raven and opening for Raven. And in San Francisco, they added Exodus to the bill. Bonded by Blood wasn't out yet, but it was done. It was recorded. Like, we had a copy of it. So we had already been listening to that record at that point. And we're huge fans. That record is incredible. And so we were super excited that they were going to be on the bill. Also super nervous because we were going to have to follow them in their hometown, where they were they were the king of Thrash Mountain. At that point in time, nobody was harder and faster and crazier than Exodus. And in their hometown, in front of that Bay Area audience, which was already legendary for the insanity of the headbanging and head walking and all that. This is pre-crossover, pre-mosh pits, any of that stuff. This was straight up metal. And man, we met those guys at night, and it was super cool to meet them and everything. And everyone was super nice, and we were hanging out backstage, and they went on, and I watched from the side of the stage their whole set, and I had never seen anything like it. The audience, that place probably held like 2,000 or something. And the audience was like a wave of people coming over onto the stage constantly. And like at the front of the stage, people on top of people on top of people. I mean, it was like, I'd never seen it before. There was nothing like that going on anywhere else on that level of craziness with an audience. And yeah, we had to go on after that, and we did okay because it was our first time in the Bay Area. And I know we had a fistful was out. People wanted to see us. But I was just like, God damn it. Like, that's what I want. I want what they were doing. And holy shit, man, it was, and then we got off stage and they had trashed our dressing room while we were on stage. They had gone in and raided all our shit and like our food and booze and trashed it. And then I think we ended up having a food fight, if I remember correctly, that night. So we were fast friends.
That's cool. You mentioned something, a term, and maybe I'm taking it too literally, but you're like pre-mosh pit. I've always grown up with mosh pits being a part of thrash and metal.
Yeah, no, there wasn't always.
When was the first one you saw?
That crossover didn't start happening till a year later, till like in 85 at metal shows. But in 84, no, it was still just a sea of headbanging and fist banging. And
wow.
In San Francisco, in the Bay Area, they were stage diving. But the mosh pits hadn't really started yet at that point, to my knowledge. It was in 85 was the first time we ever saw in New York when we played the Ritz in New York City. I think that might have been the first time we had like full on mosh pits, like circle pit and stage diving and all that started happening at our shows. Because the crossover between the two scenes started happening around, late 84 into 85. And that opened the doors for all of that.
What's the feeling when you see that for the first time? Is that
Well, I had been going to shows at CBGB's starting in 84. So I had like seen it in the context of hardcore shows.
Okay.
Because I would go to the Sunday matinees at CBGB's and see all the hardcore bands, whether it was New York bands playing like Agnostic Front and Murphy's Law and Cro-Mags and things like that, or, bands coming through town, getting to see, bands from California, bands from Texas, seeing Suicidal for the first time at CBGB's, so I had already been going to hardcore shows for a long time. So I was very well aware of this slam dancing and moshing and what that took place at the hardcore shows, but that was not going on at metal shows yet, until the New York hardcore kids and guys that I would see at CBGB started showing up at metal shows and starting pits. And the metal fans are like, what's this? Like, what's this crazy shit? I want some of that too, and then of course, metal fans started listening to hardcore bands and hardcore fans started listening to metal bands and, the rest is history.
That is so cool. And I love the kind of time capsule you put us all in, because I don't want to make you feel old. I was born in 83.
Yeah.
So
I'm
weren't
at CBGB's when you were 1.
No, I was not. That's just funny. Well, if my parents were cool, maybe I could have been.
Right.
Speaking of cool, one of my listeners thinks you're pretty cool. That's a terrible transition. Gilbert Cano said, Scott Ian is such a legend. Of all the things, his words about Malcolm Young after his passing and the skill involved in Young's playing of the rhythm guitar has stuck with me. So what does that mean to you? Because that's something I see since I've been a fan, is not just your playing, but who you are as a person. And because you've done a lot of interviews, a lot of TV shows, but your words inspire people as well. Do you ever take time to think about that? Because you've written books as well.
Yeah. Well, I take any writing I do like very, very seriously, even if it's like a blurb for somebody's book. Like I get asked, can you write a blurb for the back cover? And I'll agonize over like one sentence, because I take writing in general very seriously. Because when I basically raised my hand in the band meeting a million years ago, when after Fistful of Metal and Neil Turbin was gone, and he had written all the lyrics on that record. So now, like, well, who's going to write the lyrics? And I was just kind of like, I will, not having any fucking idea what that meant or how or what or when or like any of it. And but I just figured, like, I'll try. Worst case scenarios, it's terrible and someone else will give it a shot. But I truly believed, there was a part of me that believed it was something I could do. Because I mean, not because I was an avid reader, like that's not going to make you a lyricist or a writer, but at least I did. I was a very avid reader, comics, horror, sci-fi, everything, history, anything to get my hands on. And I just loved reading so much. And I felt like I had a point of view. So I was like, I'll try. And from that day forward, I've taken writing extremely seriously, because I understood the task I was taking, that we've got this music that's intense and the lyrics have to be just the same. They have to be on the same level as the music we're making. Otherwise it's not going to be a balance there. So the lyrics count. And I've always taken that extremely seriously. And then that started to cross over in other things I've gotten to do in my life, whether it's books or comics that I've written or, anything. I take it really seriously. So yeah, even when I wrote probably whatever it was on social media after Malcolm died, I remember, agonizing over paying tribute to my hero, because I want to make sure I say what I really feel. I want people to feel what I'm feeling. about this guy. And, that's sometimes hard to get across. I'm glad he enjoyed what I had to say about Malcolm, because it was super important to me.
And speaking of, because he's an inspiration to you and to so many others, this is from Mother Danzig. I don't think she's actually the mother of Glenn.
Imagine that's her actual name. He called Mother Danzig.
Apparently she is seeing you guys on Sunday, very excited. She calls you an inspiration, and she would like to know what keeps you going with guitar, and if there are any tips that you have for aspiring guitar players like herself who are struggling with motivation.
I've never needed any motivation, because for me, picking up a guitar is just instant fun. It's joy to put on a guitar and either just noodle around or play songs with my band. It's always been that for me from the first time I ever picked up a guitar. It's always been that, and it still is. I've never needed motivation to play guitar, because it brings me joy. It puts a smile on my face. It's the best tool I've ever used to do anything, because it enables me to create things that then I have even more fun doing. And for me, it's
like,
hard
is
to
there
say.
ever a day that you're bummed out, you don't want to play? Because I love radio, but there are days I don't want to do this.
I'll take a break when I get off a tour, because my hands need it. But there's never a time where picking up a guitar is a negative. It just never is. I think motivation really, it's got to come from your heart. It's got to come from your soul. You have to, if it's something you're looking for reasons to pick it up, I would never tell anyone to step away from the guitar. But, it's just my own personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've explained what guitar means to me. I would think it would be the same for everybody, projecting my own feelings that, well, guitar must feel the same for everybody. Obviously not. But I would just say, look for the joy in it, to find motivation is play what makes you happy. Figure out what puts a smile on your face, and stick to that, because it should never feel like work or be annoying or give you anxiety, or, for me, it's always been the opposite of all those things, and it is, because it is work. I make a living playing guitar, but, I found a way to make the thing I love doing, that's my job. Who could ask for anything more than that?
Yeah, no, you're definitely living the dream. And I guess with that, because I mentioned, because there are days I don't want to do, because I struggle with depression, and sometimes, but I force myself to do it, because look, I'm in the position of talking to Scott Ian. I mean, I need to keep doing it. I've gone through tough times where I'm like, if I stay away from the mic for too long, I'm not going to go back. And now that I'm sure the name of the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, what a blessing in disguise, because I've been in radio for 20 years. This podcast is just a side thing. I never knew what it was ever going to be. And I get to talk to you for the second time. The first time, because I don't want to keep you here for too long. I know you guys are busy. We spoke about Axl DC, and that was one of the best shows you've ever seen. Have you ever seen a show that has matched that since?
Axl DC.
Yeah, so because we were at the same show at the Garden. You were
right.
So I say that like everybody calls them that. AC/DC with Axl Rose, that you had mentioned that was one of the best shows you had ever seen. Have you ever seen anything close to that since? Because it's been a few years since I've spoken.
Yeah, I've been to some. Yeah. That Axl DC show though was it was fantastic. It was because I just thought he nailed Bon like, man, he nailed it. He nails Bon and Brian, and his joy as a fan of that band. Because I don't know Axl other than having like said hi to him a couple of times over the decades. I don't know him, but I did hung out with him kind of one time in the 90s at a bar in New York. But other than hey, how are you? But I've always been a fan of, certainly Appetite and that record. And I've always known he's an AC/DC fan because he talks about it. And yeah, he crushed it. And boy, did his fanboyness came out so strong on that stage. You could tell how happy he was to be fronting, one of his favorite bands of all time. And not only did he do it justice, but I mean, it just couldn't have been, I don't know how, other than Bon coming back from the dead and Zombie walking out onto that stage, it couldn't have been better. I mean, he nailed it. He fucking nailed it. And he took a backseat to Angus. It was just so respectful. He the fact that between songs, he literally it was like, you'll probably know this next one. And then they bust into Highway to Hell. It's just like, Jesus Christ, I mean, it was just, everything about it was great. It was 2.5 hours of headbanging, just nonstop. And yeah, fabulous, fantastic show. Maybe nothing. I don't know that I've been to something as big as that, a big arena spectacle, big thing, and my favorite band to boot. So, but I have seen some great shows. I saw that band Turnstile at the Hollywood Palladium just a couple of months ago, and I've been into that band for a bit, and I think their last 2 records are fantastic. And finally got to see it live, and man, they fucking brought it. I mean, holy shit. The connection between that band and their audience is something I haven't seen in a really long time. To the point where even for the 30 minutes before they're on stage, the audience is dancing to the pre-show music. And then their intro song is Whitney Houston singing is I Want to Dance with Somebody. They play that over the PA before they come on, and the fucking audience is singing and dancing because everyone's just so excited to be there to see Turnstile. And the energy in the room was unbelievable. And yeah, that was I highly recommend Turnstile to anyone who hasn't come across it yet.
Right on. That's cool. I know like about them, but now based upon what you just said, I need to go into more of a deep dive. Not to stay, because again, it's my theme, but you mentioned, you've seen Axl in passing, because I've gotten a few questions about, do you have any memories of that Eddie Trunk interview where Axl just showed up, where it was like what you, Sebastian, Chris Jericho, and he was on, I think it was on the station I work for, Q1043. I don't know. I think that's where it was. That
Yes.
was just, so what memories do you have of that? Because that's a great moment in radio.
It's almost like, I mean, it's like a fucking dream. Like my dinner with Axl. Yeah, it was it was crazy. We were, I think, am I correct in saying Sebastian and I were there doing press because of the VH1 show that we had done, the rock, what was it called again? Fuck, I can't remember.
I know what you're talking about. Democracy. Democracy.
Yeah, me, him,
and Ted.
Him, and Ted, and Evan and Jason. Yeah, we were the band in the TV show. Yeah, I think we were doing press for that, and I think that's why we were there. But anyway, yeah, we were up doing Eddie's show, and of course, we're all friends with Eddie, and Baz was texting with Axl. Axl was in New York rehearsing, I believe at SIR, a big rehearsal studio complex in the city, and rehearsing with GNR. And I think this was the initial, GNR's coming back with the new lineup. Nobody knows what's going on. It's all a big secret, blah, blah, blah. But Axl's in New York rehearsing, and Sebastian and him are texting, and he's like, what are you doing? Blah, I'm on Eddie Trunk's show. And Axl's like, I love Eddie Trunk. I should come over. And Sebastian's like, showed us, like, he says he's coming over, and we're all thinking, he's not coming, there's no way he's not coming over here. And then Axl's like, I'll see you guys, soon. And why would Axl come? He's not coming here. And then not too long later, security's calling up that Axl Rose is here. We're like, get the fuck out of here, and yeah, Axl Rose comes walking in and joins the interview. It was like wow, this is surreal. It was, I totally forgot about that until you brought it up, like, because it doesn't even seem like something that could ever really happen. And yeah, and he hung out with us and he couldn't have been cooler. And it was a fucking momentous occasion. I think the smile on Eddie Trunk's face got so big, I thought it was going to cut the top of his head off. Like, it was like, I mean, it was really just quite the moment. And me and Jericho were just like, Jesus Christ, like, what the fuck? You know, Sebastian and Axl go way back. They've been friends for a long time. But yeah, it was, what a trip, you know, and he was great. He just answered every question Eddie threw at him. And it was just, yeah, I have pictures of that because we took pictures. I've got pictures of that somewhere. I got to find one of those photos and post that. I totally forgot about that happened. That's crazy.
Well, I guess it goes to show like a life you've led and where that kind of, you get to forget about it. And I want to credit some more listeners who are excited to hear from you. Keebler, and Dan just wanted to know about that, because I guess remember that's the days of radio before the internet, where I have friends like listening to Eddie Trunk. Turn on the radio. We're all surrounding the radio, listening to all of you guys talking. It was just fascinating. One more thing as far as the past, before we talk about maybe some new stuff and
no worries.
No worries. I appreciate it. I spoke to your bandmate Frank Bello last year about Married with Children.
Cool.
And I know that's a very big part of your history, and you know, it's just like a great moment in television history. We talk about radio history. This is TV history.
Yeah.
What I guess
right up there with the last episode of MASH and Seinfeld.
Yes. Well, I think to us rock fans, to us metal fans, I think
I trust me. For me, it's right up there.
I guess. I mean, I'm trying to think of a question, because you probably get asked all the time about it. But do you have like a favorite memory from that people might not know about? It's something because you were just talking before about falling on the ice. You know, that's not a good story. I found it a good story with your backpack saving you. So do you maybe have an untold story that you haven't said about Married with Children? Your experience?
An untold story.
I'm
Probably not.
Seeing if you forgot anything else. I mean, you forgot about the radio interview with Eddie.
I mean, there's so many little things that aren't really, you know, like we took David Faustino. That week we were shooting that it was like in early 92. We took David, he played Bud. Metallica was playing the Forum in LA that week. So we took David to Metallica show. And when at some point when we left the backstage to go out front to watch, so we walked into the arena and the lights were on, and we walk in and people saw Bud Bundy. And like thousands of people started chanting Bud, 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 Bud. Like he was very excited that, like, you know, this arena full of metalheads was very excited to see him. And we had a lot of drinks that night. And the next day he was late for work, you know, on the set. And one of the producers came to our dressing room and said, we appreciate you guys bonding with the cast and stuff, but how about no more metal shows this week until we're done with work? Because apparently, yeah, even when he showed up, he was a little rough around the edges when he got in.
That's funny.
And we'll take all the credit for that. Ed O'Neill was the best, man. That guy, you know, we were all huge fans of that show when we got to do it, and he couldn't have been cooler to us, just nicer, super helpful. You'd think it would be easy playing yourself on something, but it's weird because you're saying words that someone else wrote. So immediately there's a weird stilted kind of disconnect because you're like, well, I wouldn't really say this, but then the point of acting is to make it seem like you would say that, right, and it's really coming from you. And Ed was able to get that across to us based on the first few rehearsals, where he's like, it's a little stiff, you know, guys. And I understand it's weird to play yourselves because these aren't your words and you're not just improvising. And he would give us line readings, you know, like put the emphasis here, try it like this, maybe turn this way, like just little things that you'd you never realize, you think, oh, actors, they just fucking say the words, but it's, you know, you learn a lot when you're hanging out with a bunch of them making a TV show, and someone is the polar opposite of the thing they play on TV, because Ed O'Neill couldn't be more opposite Al Bundy. But when he flips that switch and turns that on, he became that slob. You know what I mean? And that with that voice and everything, but he couldn't in real life. He's this super intelligent, you know, soft spoken, like it's couldn't be more opposite. And he taught us how to play ourselves. And I thought it was so nice of him. He doesn't need to fucking take the time to, you know, like he's probably got more shit to do in his day than worry about. But, you know, I guess he's also thinking like, I want the show to be great and I want Anthrax to be great. So he, you know, he was unbelievably cool working with us. It was really just one of those high points of my career. I think about that week, getting to do that show and be on set every day. It was so much fun.
Are you hoping? I asked Frank this too. Are you hoping? Because they're rebooting everything,
right?
Do you hope for a reboot with Married with Children? And if they do, you better be involved.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing if they did it. It would be interesting to see, because you couldn't make that show now with the joke writing that was on that show at that time in the late 80s and early 90s. You can't make that show, but you could certainly make something funny in that same format and reboot it. So why not? I mean, I see stuff like, I was watching this stuff, clips the other day. I'm a big fan of the two guys that host Weekend Update on SNL, Colin Jost and Michael Che. I think they're both really funny writers and comedians. And every year on the last episode of the season of SNL, they do this thing where they swap jokes. Yeah. They write jokes for each other that they've never seen. And the first time they're doing it is when they're reading it off the teleprompter right there. And they write the fucking most brutal, evil shit for each other to say. Like Michael Che writes the most racist shit for Colin Jost to say, because Colin's white and Michael's black.
Right.
And he writes shit that you can't say, but Colin Jost now has to say it on SNL. And it is I was crying listening to some of these jokes. And so they found a context to say the most politically incorrect shit. And they can, and it's on fucking national television. And it's the most non-woke humor, I think, on TV, and they pull it off because both of them are unbelievably smart comedians and writers. And they were like, fuck this, we'll do whatever we want. We're comedians, we're telling jokes. And I think that's got to be the attitude. And people need to fucking lighten up about that shit.
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, right on. Because I'm thinking, I just finished watching that 90s show, and I'm like, that 70s show, I liked it, but you go back and because that's not as old as Married with Children, right? And there are things on there that you can't even do today. I mean,
sure,
Fez is like a borderline rapist, like, but the reboot, even though they have things in there that are very PC, they kept the old humor and a lot of the perviness. I'm like, okay.
Sure.
I like this. They didn't really bastardize this reboot. So it got me thinking about with Married with Children.
Right.
Is it all focused now to go back to the current, all on the tour, or what else are you thinking about as far as your future or future of Anthrax, or is it just in tour mode right now?
I mean, right now I've always been that way. Every day is basically, leading up to the hour before showtime and then actually getting on stage is making sure I'm just conserving my energy and spending my day in a way that will enable me to get on stage and give everything I have to give, which usually means, not really doing much, reading, writing, watching stuff, talking to my family, press, but really conserving my energy, because for me, it's all about getting to that hour before. And then I've got a very strict kind of stretching warm up and then guitar warm up so that I know when I get on stage, I'm at the BPMs I need to be to walk on stage and, play our songs without cheating. And because, you know, it's all about someone who's going to take money out of their wallet and commit to buying a ticket to see my band. You know, I owe them the best I could give them, because the fact that they've made that choice to come see Anthrax, it's my responsibility. It's my job, and it's my privilege to be on stage and perform and do that. And I take that extremely seriously. It's something I've never taken for granted. I think the live show of this band is second to none. And it's been like that since the earliest days, where we felt like there's a lot of shit that's out of control in the music business. But one of the things we can control is who we are as a live band.
Mm.
And you can work at that, and you can become fucking great at it. And we are. And I take that really seriously. And it takes a lot to maintain that when you're not in your 20s anymore. You know, I'm performing at the same level at 59 as I did at 29, you know, and or 19. I don't have hair moving when I'm banging my head, but the head's banging just as hard. And I take that very seriously, and I keep myself in good shape. And it's because to me, that's what it's all about. It's that privilege of stepping on a stage in front of an audience that's fucking paid their hard-earned money to see you. I want to give them the fucking night of their life. And I've always felt like that.
Well, I read you just a few comments, and they were all glowing, just saying you killed it. Just those few shows you've done in Canada. I know you're in North Dakota now. People excited. I mean, you're going to be where next? You're going to be in Madison, Wisconsin, and you're going to Chicago, Portland, and you're going to be all over. So people are excited to see this massive show with you, Exodus, and Black Label Society. I want to ask, because hopefully maybe the next time I interview you, because by the way, I looked up it was episode 37. That's the first time. So what did I say? I'm up to 300 and I'm 400. So a long time.
Yeah. Long way in.
Since you're a horror guy, I just started a horror spinoff, Appetite for Horror. Very clever. Hopefully I get you on that. But I want to ask, what's your favorite horror movie of all time? Well, I got you.
The Thing, John Carpenter.
That's a great answer. That's a great movie.
It's the best answer.
Yeah. That you didn't even hesitate. You didn't even hesitate. I love that.
I mean, I love a lot of horror movies, but that would be the one.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully we'll go more in depth with horror in a future interview. But Scott,
Sure.
thank you for taking the time. Please wish Gary Holt, rub his knees, make sure he has plenty of ice, not beneath him, but like on the infected area or whatever it is.
Yes.
So just thank you for your time, and I hope we get to do this again.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you.